Hey guys, welcome back to Starcastic Remarks. Alongside Chris and James, my name is Ryan Chambers. We are the three brothers of the official Dallas Stars podcast of THPN. If you're watching on YouTube live, we'd appreciate it if you click like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Starcastic Remarks. And even if you're watching or listening afterwards, we'd also appreciate it if you do the same thing. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're at like 640 around that area right now. So we're growing, and it's crazy that that even that many people care about what we have to talk about. But guys, we got a lot to talk about with this series. This has been an up and down series. We're gonna kind of dive deep into what we've seen, what we might see here in Game 6 in a possible series eliminating game for the Colorado Avalanche. We're going to talk about Miro for a little bit. We're also going to get into some of the other series in the NHL because we haven't really gotten a chance to talk about it other than when we made our original picks with our bracket challenge. So we'll kind of dive deep into that because some teams have already moved on into the second round in the the Washington Capitals and the Carolina Hurricanes with Logan Stankoven, which, by the way, I love to see that. So first off, gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Great. It's storming where I am, and my power was out for 4 hours, but it came back on at 8, so we get to do the podcast.
Yes, I was about to say it was just like it's been kind of a little bit of a nasty weather kind of day here in the DFW area. I wondered if you guys had kind of experienced something similar. So,
when you get further south, it just gets hot.
Yeah, especially in Central Texas, I believe that. But anyways, Chris, I saw that the Texas Stars took a 1-0 lead in their series too.
Yeah, they stomped the Griffins in that first game. It was not very competitive. I mean, the first maybe half of the game looked kind of like a playoff game, but after that, man, both teams were like, all right, this one's over. And guess what? They have a whole week until their game 2. An entire week because of just arena availability in Grand Rapids. So very AHL. There's going to be a week break between Game 1 and Game 2, and then Games 3 and 4, if necessary, will be back-to-back.
That is the weirdest thing. I mean, I guess I should expect that because, again, it is AHL. But
it's AHL. So in the NHL, everyone works around what the NHL needs to do for the most part. In the AHL, it is the exact opposite. Everything else comes before an AHL playoff game.
True. So are they in the second round, or is this their first round series?
It's technically the second round. The way the AHL playoffs works is the first round is a 3-game series between a certain number of teams. And it's different for each division because the divisions are so wildly different because they're actually geography based, unlike the National Hockey League divisions. So it's the
they're not
first
8 teams per division. Some divisions have like 10, some have like 7 or something like that.
Yeah, some have a lot, yeah. So it's the first round where there's 16 teams.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. I know I've looked at a bracket before for the AHL, and I know it's looked really
They're essentially a play-in round.
So yeah, so kind of like how the NBA does their little 9-10 thing, kind of like what the Mavs tried to get into the playoffs with. So, anyway, yeah, I'm really looking forward to Game 6 here tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to the AHL Stars for a long, deep playoff run too. Because I mean, Blue Mel, I mean, what a year that guy has had, especially down there. I'm sure he wants his turn in the NHL next year. Would be my guess. So,
yeah,
but.
It'll be tough going for Texas because the Grand Rapids Griffins just got a bunch of players from the Red Wings, and the Texas Stars just lost Petrovic to the Dallas Stars. So they're pretty much working in opposite directions as far as adding and subtracting personnel.
And it's not like Dumba and Smith are going to go down to the AHL, right? So that ain't happening anytime soon. So, okay. Well, let's get into the series here up in the DFW area because it has been such an up and down series, guys. And in terms of series. And I should say that, that's a good point. It has been a fantastic series. This is exactly what we expected from both of these teams. Like, it has been the most competitive series, the most talked about series. And well, maybe not so much anymore because of what's happening in Toronto, but we'll get there in a little bit. But it has been so up and down with emotions when it comes to the Dallas Stars fan base. Like, after Game 1, Colorado's like, ho, we're going to sweep you guys. And then the Stars fan base is kind of melting down, because at that point it was 8 losses in a row going back into the regular season. And then they come back and they have a really good 2 sets of games in overtime, very clutch goals by Blackwell and Sagan. And then we saw the nastiness of game 4, which was the worst game they've played in the series by far, not even close. And then they respond with one of the best playoff performances I've seen out of this era team, with the Wyatt Johnston and this kind of era team. That was the best I've ever seen them play. So what's y'all's original takeaways from the first 5 games of this series, or just from the first 5 games of the playoffs? Have they been able to flip that switch?
I mean, it feels like so long ago, but that's exactly what I was going to go to, is that the Stars were able to play like the Dallas Stars after not doing it for 2 months. And that is a wild thing. That is like tons of stuff has happened in this series. Captain has come back from not playing for 3 years. And still the craziest thing to me is that the Stars played like garbage for 2 months. And they showed up game 1, revved up a little bit. And in game 2, they were the Dallas Stars again. I mean, that is insane. It should be the storyline that we always come back to, no matter how deep or short this playoff run goes.
And I think another big storyline is the Stars just being able to find ways to win. This team is just so good that even when the other team has a pretty decent game, I mean, the Avalanche played well in games 2 and 3 and had the lead for most of the game. And the Stars just do what they've been doing all season long and just found ways to win.
Yeah, and you got to think that's the veteran presence. I mean, the team that's been to the conference final 2 years in a row, yeah, they better have found a way to win playoff games, because they've had a lot of experience.
And it's kind of crazy to think about this, but obviously the players just voted for the best player in the the best player in the NHL award, the Ted Lindsay Award. And 2 of the 3 players are on the Colorado Avalanche and could possibly be out of the playoffs tomorrow evening. So that just goes to show you. And here's the other thing that you have to look at it in perspective. This Dallas team has a inferior defense, at least on paper, compared to the Avalanche. The Avalanche's defense is fantastic. But when you look at Sam Girard and Josh Manson and Cale McCarr, and then you also look at the aspect when you come within the Stars, they haven't had their best defenseman the entire series. They haven't had their best goal scorer the entire series. Their best players didn't show up really until game 5. Like they have been very, very good, and the Stars have been in a very good spot despite all of the intangibles that were against them. And on top of that, going into the playoffs, the Stars obviously were sucking it up. And because they were sucking it up in terms of not winning any games, everyone was picking against them. And we went into the playoff series as the underdog. So now looking from the beginning of the series to now, and just the stract difference between the 2 elements from the beginning of the series to now is just remarkable. It's incredible that the Stars have a chance to eliminate them tomorrow night in game 6.
Yeah, and when we talked about that switch flipping, I feel like the biggest proponent of that is how good the Blue Liners have played for the Stars. Like, they are so outplaying the positions they should be in. I mean, the entire right side. Lyubushkin, we thought he was going to be a bottom pair guy on this team to begin the season. Ceci should be a bottom pair guy. He wasn't even on the roster to start the season. We didn't even think we were going to need defensemen. And then Petrovic was in the AHL literally all season except for 1 game that he played with Dallas. And I mean, he's stepped into a crazy role and he's elevated his game. I mean, I've been watching him in Cedar Park. He has not been playing as good as this. He's had some good games, yes, but consistently he has not played this well for 5 straight games. So all of those guys on the right side have stepped up in a drastic way. And if they can continue that once Miro comes back, I mean, the Stars might have gone from the blue line being the weak link of the team to being the strong suit.
And to help put it in perspective for, non-hockey fans, I mean, look at what the Rangers did in the World Series with their pitching. Their pitching was seen as incredibly inferior, and even in the regular season, it was not very good. But then when they got to the playoffs, all of a sudden, it was just like, click, oh, there's the flipping the switch of the pitching, and then it was fantastic. I mean, it's incredible to watch the decor in particular, Chris, and you're exactly right in the way that they've stepped up. Now, I wanted to get into a little bit of this, and it's mostly what I wanted to talk about is how has Dallas handled Colorado's top players. So looking at the top players for the Avalanche, how have the Stars handled them? When it's kind of crazy, to be honest with you. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up some stats here. I'm gonna throw some stats at you, just very basic stats: goals, assists, and points. Okay. Obviously, McKinnon tops the list. He's got 5 goals in 5 games. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. He's the best player in the world. He got 7 points. Okay. Have you looked at the points list for the Avalanche? If you haven't, don't, because I want to know who you think is number 2.
Remember.
Okay, who do you think is
sure
number
it's
2?
O'Connor.
Okay, that is correct. How many points does O'Connor have?
5.
5.
Ah,
Who's under that?
stupid secondary assist.
It's
Lehkonen.
Good, yeah. How many points does he have?
4.
3.
Dang it! How suck at guessing the points.
Like and that just again, it shows you that even though, at least for me, just looking at this, is that even though the Stars or the Avalanche wanted to be a more balanced team and they went out and completely overhauled the roster, that depth hasn't really shown up in the way they've wanted it to. They've still had to rely upon Nathan McKinnon. And, O'Connor has stepped up tremendously. He's a 4th-line guy. And no one else really has stepped up other than Nathan McKinnon and Logan O'Connor. And that's not something you want if you're an Avalanche fan. Like, obviously you want McKinnon. But Logan O'Connor, that should be an added bonus. That should not be a guy you should be relying upon for offense. The other people you should be looking at for offense is Cale Makar. Cale Makar has 2 assists in the series, and that's it. So in terms of, shutting down one player, maybe not necessarily shutting down is the wrong word, but he has not shown up in the points column for the Avalanche like he did in the regular season, Makar. I'll take that, not having one player have probably the points he has. And then, Nathan McKinnon is Nathan McKinnon. He's going to do what he wants when he wants. And that's why I'm kind of meh on whether the Stars have kind of handled the Colorado Avalanche's top players. What say you?
Right. McKinnon is obviously not getting handled at all. He's doing whatever he wants. He's the best guy on the ice pretty much every single game this series. He's been able to do what he wants. You can argue a little bit. Maybe there's some defensive miscues that he's made for sure. But when you see how he takes over the game when he gets the puck on his stick, it's shocking every time. But the story for the Avs really is the failure to execute, 1 from Makar and then 2 from their additions, which is something that I didn't think was going to be a problem. But their new players, Marty Necas, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, those guys were supposed to be the ones that would fill in the goals. And they have not been able to do hardly anything this series. And that's been really shocking and bad for the Avalanche. Cale Makar, I think, has just been bad, just downright bad. I don't think the Stars are doing anything necessarily to keep him down, really. I haven't noticed him getting lit up any more than Harley has been. I haven't noticed forwards attacking him any quicker. I just think he's missing the net.
I think some of it is missing the net. His shots are getting blocked a lot, and then Otter is just not letting him beat him. That is like the one player that every time Otter saves the puck, he death stares Makar every single time. It's amazing to see.
But you mentioned the blocked shots, but that's one of the things that Makar's the best at is beating that first guy and getting the shot to the net anyway. And he hasn't been
able to. Yeah. And to your point of the 3 centers they picked up, they have 1 goal between the 3 of them.
Yeah, that's terrible for those 3 guys. Those are supposed to be big pieces for this run, especially Nelson, who's going to be gone.
Yeah. Well, and this goes back to my question of is this the right way to build a team? And maybe Colorado didn't really have a choice in how they viewed it when they were looking at the trade deadline. They were like, this is not good enough. Oh, we can either just deal with what we have and go into next offseason and hope for a better run, or we go out and we try to overhaul this roster on the fly, which is what they did. So, and maybe that's not the right way to build a team. I don't think that is the right way to build a team, but they did what they had to do, but it's not paying off for them right now.
Yeah, that's the two ways to look at it. Is before this, they were a wild card team, and they were fighting hard for that spot too. So it's not like doing nothing would have made them better necessarily. Now, that's debatable too, because if you actually did nothing and you kept Rantanen on the team, maybe you're a lot better. I mean, that's definitely a question. But after the Rantanen trade, it was for sure throw it in the mixer, and that's what they did, and they went in all in on it. So kudos to them for that, and it was successful during the regular season. But yeah, so far it has not worked at all for them.
Yeah, and
in fact, their death goals have come from their own guys, from O'Connor.
Yeah, who have already been on the team. And I think really what's hurt them the most is not having Rantanen in the series at all. I mean, that is one of their biggest playoff performers in the last 4 or 5 years, and he's not on the team anymore. And they tried to replace it with other players, but some of those players are known to not play very well in the playoffs, especially Marty Necas. I mean, he's half a point per game, which isn't bad. Don't get me wrong. It's not terrible, but you were getting more than twice as much from Rantanen.
Yeah.
That's a lot to fill.
Yeah, that the top line from Colorado, it feels like it can drag their offense across the finish line if you've got Lehkonen, McKinnon, and Rantanen. But with Necas there, with how he's been playing, it feels like a much taller task.
And when you look at Nathan McKinnon, he has tried to do it himself. And I don't know if you guys have been listening to DLLS at all, but there was one individual in particular. I don't want to name out his name, but he was very critical of Nathan McKinnon and saying, dude, stop trying to do it yourself. Like, you've got guys around you to help you. And he was very critical about how he was trying to do it by himself. So, I mean, is there something to be said for that he's really just trying to do it all himself? Or is it just he just doesn't feel like the players around him can help him?
I mean, maybe, but he's Nathan McKinnon, so he kind of can do it all himself is one thing. I'm more worried about, like, his off-ice antics, because we've all heard the stories of, like, his diet and what he tries and gets his teammates to do off the ice. And you saw it on the ice when he was barking at Charlie Coyle after one of those shifts. It's like, that's what I'd worry about more with McKinnon more than him trying to do it himself, because he can do it himself. He's that good, and he's done it several times this series.
And that was going to be the thing I actually pointed out to you. I wanted to get y'all's take on that, because it's not like Charlie Coyle is like a 3 or 4 year player like Wyatt Johnston or something like that. Like, I think he's even older.
He's 33.
Yeah, so he's older than Nathan.
He's a veteran. He's a bona fide veteran.
And he was, I don't want to say he was arguing necessarily, but there was some tension there for sure in the fact that I think
it was not a two-way conversation. It was barking.
Yeah,
he was getting barked at.
Yeah, he was. It looked like McKinnon was getting onto him for like a missed assignment, or he was not where he was supposed to be, and it was on the power play. That's when that shift happened to Chris. So, and again, I don't think that's a good look either. I mean, I understand that, like, you're trying to win a playoff series and stuff like that, but you don't go and do that to an established veteran like Charlie Coyle. Like, he's been there, done that. He has been around the block and been on some really good teams and some cup-winning teams as well. So, again, I understand it's Nathan McKinnon. He's the best player in the world. He can do stuff like that. But I just don't know if that's like the right method of trying to encourage your players, especially nowadays.
And that's a stark contrast to how the Stars have handled their business in the playoffs so far, and even during that horrible losing streak at the end of the regular season. I mean, we were upset because we thought they should be more upset. And honestly, it looks like we were wrong on that, because they've stayed level-headed and they were confident they were going to find their game in the playoffs. And kudos to them. They were right. I mean, they knew what they had to do. They knew what kind of attitude they needed to have in their dressing room, and they got it done. So that shows that while some of us were calling out Stars leadership for not performing the way we thought they should to the public, they knew what was going on behind the scenes and they had control of it. And when stuff like what McKinnon did to Coyle happen on the bench, that's when you start to wonder, hey, maybe they don't have everything figured out in the dressing room, which would make sense when there's 8 new skaters for them. 8 new players, not skaters. I'm including goalies.
And there's that it makes sense as well with what the coaches say about their best players not scoring. After game 4, DeWar was asked about his top players and are you worried about them scoring? Is like, no, they're due for a game. And Bednar was asked the same question, I think, after game 5. He's like, yeah, they need to be better. They have to figure it out. And that those different types of answers is it's astounding to me, honestly, how different their headspaces are.
And I don't think that's to say either one's right or wrong, but in
Yeah.
this series, one's working. At least a little bit, at least one game more than the other one.
Well, and in the playoffs, that's all you need. Sometimes you just need one game better, one moment better, and that keeps you going. So I just thought it was really interesting that whole topic. But
we haven't talked about the
anyways,
title of the episode yet. Miro Heiskanen.
That's where I was going next. You're reading my mind. So this is still a topic with Stars fans, because if we were down 3-2, and just give me a quick answer, would we see Miro Heiskanen in game 6?
My gut feeling is still yes, but after hearing what a lot of the beat writers are talking about, it's starting to feel more like no, which I'm guessing you're going to get into, Ryan.
Yeah, it feels a lot more like no now than anything. After not seeing him in game 5, that all but confirms it for me that we're not going to hear anything until he's 100%.
Well, and if you're Pete DeBoer on top of that, you kind of have to balance what you see in this series and the success that these 6 guys currently have had, because they've, for the most part, been fairly successful. They have been. They've been pretty good and good enough to get the Stars a 3-2 series lead. They are a part of that factor. So do you want to mess with that chemistry going into a pivotal, series clinching game 6 and mess with the chemistry there?
That being said, we just saw at practice today that Harley was on a pair with Miro Heiskanen. So you didn't throw out that teaser first, Ryan. That's the most important thing. We got to tease people.
Right. But if we're being completely honest, what was the reason why Miro was on that pairing though?
Well, they said that Lyubushkin was having a maintenance day. He wasn't on the ice at all.
He wasn't even
on
the
ice. You could have put Dumba there. You could have put Smith there. I mean, you didn't have to put Miro Heiskanen on that pair. That's all I'm saying.
It's not wrong.
It's
not saying he's right, but he's not wrong.
Yeah, but okay. So the other question is that if the Stars do put Miro Heiskanen back into game 6, I think at this point I will be very shocked if we see him for game 6 or game 7 now. Yeah, my mind has changed on that.
He will have to be 100%. From what it feels like now, from him not playing in game 5, it seems like he could re-injure something if he plays. And if that's the case, then honestly, I hope we don't see him.
I wouldn't be shocked if he plays in either game, just because it's playoffs and stuff just happens out of the blue. Even last year, I mean, I thought Yanni Hakanpää was going to slot in at any moment. Like, honestly, I did. So I wouldn't be shocked by it, but I don't expect it. I think before game 5, I was leaning more to the side that, yeah, we're going to see Miro Heiskanen in this series at some point. That was what my bet would have been. Now that we're past game 5 and how pivotal those games are in a series, I'm leaning more to the side that we're not going to see him. Even if it goes to a game 7, I think it's less likely than it is that we'll see him.
And I'm just really worried about, let's assume the worst and the Stars lose the next 2 games. Honestly, I don't believe that will happen. Even if we lose game 6 here tomorrow, I think they win game 7. Just based off of the way that we've seen them bounce back. And then obviously all the stats are in the Stars' favor when it comes to game 7s, especially against Jared Bednar and the Avalanche, what we've seen the last couple of years. I mean, 2020 and then even last year. So, but I just don't know, because you don't want to regret not putting him in if you lose both of these games. And I'm afraid that if something like that does happen, that's going to be a huge talking point, and that's all we're going to talk about all off season long is, well, if we had just put Miro Heiskanen in, if he was, 75% or 85%, that would have been the defining factor in winning the series for the Dallas Stars rather than losing.
Right.
That's my only fear. And that's not fair to say that, but at a, in an alternate universe where that possibly does happen, that will be a talking point.
I really wonder if this is a learning moment from the Stars from the 2020 playoff run with Seguin, because we went back and you saw what happened with that, and he was playing through an injury and he shouldn't have been, and he really hurt himself, and he put him out for pretty much an entire calendar year with playing through that injury, and he's definitely slower than he would have been. He's going to have trouble walking later in life because of what he put on the line for the Dallas Stars to try and win a Stanley Cup that year. And for Miro Heiskanen, who is still a young player, and yes, we have Mikko Rantanen now, Miro Heiskanen, I think, is still the centerpiece of this hockey team for the next 8 years. So you don't want to risk that for, well, yes, this playoff run is deeply important. The success of the Dallas Stars over the next 8 years is arguably more important.
Yep, I think I'm right there with you, Chris. That's what it feels like it is. If he could play through it, he would have played already, is my understanding.
I think so.
So y'all definitely think that it's a little bit more severe than what the Stars are leading on.
Or what I was thinking, at least at the start of the series.
But yeah.
Because I especially thought they brought him to Colorado. I was like, well, he's playing one of these 2 games.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of
not the case.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, Chris. I thought, like, when we didn't see him in game 3, I was just like, okay, he's playing in game 4. And yeah, because I mean, like, why bring him on the trip if he's not going to play? You would rather him, rest up and heal up if that's what it's going on. So I don't even know at this point. And maybe that's the intended result, to try and confuse the Avs, and because he is, such a big player to the Dallas Stars.
The other thing was they had a practice day in Colorado, so
yeah, that might have been it.
That is true. That is true.
Or just gamesmanship.
We did want to say thank you to Martin for the 10-pound super chat he left us.
Thank you, Martin. We love you deeply and personally.
Yes, thank you, Martin, who is also a WCC member. He's a Who Cares Club member.
Double thank you.
Double love. Yeah, that is weird that you had the same thought there. Anyways, when you're talking about Miro, let's talk about Jake. He's been the Stars' best player, and he loves to be the villain. He's going to enjoy being the villain in Game 6, and I think he's especially going to be even better than he was in Game 4, because, and I think the team is going to play better in front of him because they feel bad for how they played in Game 4.
Well, and
that's my hope.
And you talk about how he's a villain. I mean, what better backstory to give him than the spanking he got in Game 4? I mean, he got yanked from the game. It wasn't because he got rocked. It was more because the team was bad.
It was a mercy pull.
But he still got chased out. He got chased out of the net still. You got to think that's kind of playing in the back of his head, and he wants to get vengeance for that. And the best games that Jake Oettinger has played in the playoffs have all been on the road. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the best game of Jake Ottinger's series this game. And he's had some good ones, but he hasn't taken over. I think we might see Jake Oettinger take over Game 6.
And he's known to take over games late in series. I mean, I think his save percentage in the first 4 games is like just under 900. And then in the last 3, it's like 960 or something stupid. So he's bred for these huge games. I mean, absolutely enormous ones.
I really feel like we didn't talk about him enough on Monday night. I really truly thought he was the Stars' best player in the first period, and the Avalanche had their chances in the first period, and if it wasn't for him, it could have been drastically different at the end of the first period. Like, it should not have been 2-0 Stars, in my opinion. I was thinking like a 1-1 tie or maybe even 2-1 in favor of the Avs because I thought they had the better high danger scoring chances in the first period. So we're gonna have to really rely upon him in Game 6, and we'll have to wait and see which Mackenzie Blackwood shows up for Game 6. I expect him to be a lot better as well.
That's another huge question, is that he actually got rocked and chased out of his net, and he looked bad. Like, it wasn't just that he got scored on. He gave up some stinkers and had lots of stuff flying off of him. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds. We have no idea. That's a big question mark, because this is his first playoffs. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
So the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about was on the offensive side. Let's talk about the Stars' top producers a little bit in this series so far. So like I inferred earlier, kind of talked about a second ago, was we haven't seen the Stars' best player show up until Game 5. And this seems, at least right now, to really be the playoffs where we see Wyatt Johnston become that elite, maybe even superstar level player that the Stars desperately, I think, need.
I mean, he was last year. He led the team in scoring.
Right, but like I'm talking about, there's another level to this Wyatt Johnston character that we've been talking about. And again, it's just a feeling. It's there's no stats for me to back it up other than he was the Stars, top goal scorer last year. But I still think there's like another level there that he can really achieve in terms of just being clutch and being that guy for the Dallas Stars. But it's not just him who I'm talking about. Like Mikko Rantanen didn't show up until Game 5. Roope Hintz didn't show up until Game 5. We still really haven't seen Matt Duchene all that much. He's had spurts in there, but we haven't really seen him. Harley has been a little bit more consistent, but he's kind of like shown up and then disappeared, and then then disappeared.
Harley's been the Stars' best player. That's a bad take.
No, Ottinger's been the best player, but okay, fine.
No, that's wrong.
No, Harley. I think Harley's still been the best player. I think you're forgetting the 2 overtime games where Harley had to play almost 30 minutes in both games and looked fantastic.
Fair. But obviously we need to see more out of these guys. So do we see a 6-4 game in Game 6, or do we see like a 2-1 kind of game?
No, it's going to be a tight checking game. There's not going to be a lot of goals. I think both goaltenders are going to be on, and there's not going to be a lot of space. I think it's going to be just like Games 2 and 3.
Yeah, I'm expecting that too, especially when you get to these elimination games. That's just how they end up rolling. I mean, both teams, one team really doesn't want to lose, and the other team really wants to get to the next round. And it comes down to desperation. That's what it comes down to.
And it's a key for the Stars, I think, in this game, that they can fall back on all that knowledge of what it takes to eliminate a really good hockey team. And you can even fall back to Game 6 in the Vegas series last year, where the Stars had a good opportunity. They played a tight game. That was an incredibly tight checking, no room on the ice kind of game in Game 6 against Vegas in the first round last year. And they just couldn't break through. So being able to fall back on that, if this game does get tight checking that way, and figure out how to push through it this time, that could be really key for them.
And the other thing I kind of want to discuss about this too is, with the Stars team having as much experience as they've had the last several years, especially in the playoffs, this feels like a game for Game 6 that you really, it's obviously not a must win, but if you're looking at trying to save face and save some energy for the rest of the playoffs, this feels like a game where you really need to go and take it by the head and finish the series in 6. Because if it goes to 7, that Game 7 is going to be so emotionally toiling on this team. And I mean, we saw it last year. We saw it where they had to play 2 Game 7s early on, and it took everything out of them. And they should have beat Edmonton in the Western Conference Final, but there was so much energy utilized, and the emotions were so high in those first 2 series that at the end of the day, yes, it was the offense that kind of didn't show up in that series, but you could also say that the energy for the Stars was not really there because they had to spend so much energy in getting through those first 2 series. So, and I mean, we mentioned it earlier with, Carolina done in 5. The Capitals done in 5. Well, we obviously can't do it in 5 because we've lost 2 games, but it would be really, really nice to see this team finish it in 6, so we don't have to go back to Dallas for a game 7.
I really think that is leaving out a lot of what the Avs are going to be feeling on their side too. I mean, they're playing against the Stars without Miro Heiskanen and without Jason Robertson. And if you lose in 6 to a team who doesn't have 2 of their best players, that is honestly really embarrassing. And that has been the sentiment from a lot of Avs fans, honestly. It's like they should be rolling over this team who doesn't have 2 of their best players. And the Stars are just, they're hanging around, finding ways to win games. And in the last one, they had their actual big guns come to play for once.
And that's with all the moves the Avs have made too, and the rentals. I mean, Brock Nelson is a first-round draft pick rental for this season and has done nothing. And they're about to lose to a team that, like you said, James, is missing 2 of its best players.
I don't know. So, and then the last question I'll ask you guys about with the series, and then we can jump into the other series that's going on because there's a lot going on there. But and this is a really interesting question to me because I think I have an answer to it, but I'm curious what you guys think. Who has more pressure on them going into Game 6? Does
Avs,
okay.
The team that's about to be eliminated?
Okay, yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
All that on their back, yeah, that me and James just talked about.
Okay, all right. I'm glad I was thinking that way because I was talking about this with a couple of other Stars fans, and I was in the minority in thinking that. So
yeah, and if you're the Stars, you got to feel good about your chances in a Game 7. But if you're
Avs suck at Game 7,
right?
They can't win them.
But if you're a Stars player, you have to not even think about it at all. You have to pretend like that game doesn't exist.
Yep, exactly.
And this was an interesting thing that I'll bring in a Pete DeBoer press conference question that was asked to him, and something that he alluded to a little bit. After they won Game 3, he said that they almost took a breath, right? So they relaxed a little bit, right? And then we saw what happened in Game 4, right? So I'm not saying they can't do that again, right? They can't take a breath and be like, okay, we're up 3-2 in the series.
They'll get popped.
But you also can't play super high strung and grip the stick too tight. So the key for them going into this game is they've got to put the pressure on the Avalanche, and they've got to find that balance between the two. And especially in the Stars' favor, considering they have played so many Game 6s and 7s in the last several years, that is definitely advantage Dallas, in my opinion. And and I'm hoping that they can rely upon that experience. I mean, even Wyatt Johnston has a ton of experience in that regard in the last 2 seasons because he's done it. He's been there, done that for the last 2 seasons, and scored a series clinching goal. And so I'm hoping and I'm expecting that to be a factor in Game 6, that they find that healthy balance. And I don't know whether that means in Game 6 they go after the Avalanche, or if they focus on a territorial game and they really focus on their defensive side and they counterattack and they get those chances that way. I don't know what the game plan should be.
You talked about taking a breath. I think the Avs did the same thing after Game 4. I mean, they blew the Stars out and they're like, there we go. That's what we should be doing to this team that's missing these great players. The 2 overtime games were overtime. They're fluky. We got this now. And they weren't ready for the Stars to counterpunch. So now I think both teams have both underestimated their opponent at times, and they are ready to go look back at the Stars Game 5, the Avs Game 4. They know what they have to bring now to win the game. And I'm thinking this is going to be the best game of the series. I mean, these two are going to clash here, both knowing what needs to be done.
Yeah, and something that should be mentioned is the series from last year too. I think Game 4 is so important to the Avalanche because they lost that game against Dallas last year and went down 3-1. And they came back in Game 5, 1-1, and they couldn't do it in Game 6. You could tell they were spent.
They're out. Yeah.
And I think that's where they got their sigh of relief. They're like, okay, we tied the series. It's not 3-1 this time. We got it. And I mean, the Stars just came up and punched them in the mouth, and now they're back to an elimination game in their own arena in Game 6. Right back where they were.
I wouldn't expect them to get wore out in this game the same way that they were last year. So while we've talked about their depth hasn't produced for them, they've still eaten a lot more ice than they did last year. I mean, last year McKinnon was playing 30 minutes almost, it felt like. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was wild. And right now, the Stars, I think our top 3 defensemen are top 5 in the league for time on ice in these playoffs, which is wild. So if anyone's going to get wore out, I'd be more worried about the Dallas decor getting wore out.
And that's exactly why Lyubushkin probably wasn't on the ice for practice today.
Hopefully. I mean, seems weird to have a maintenance day and he's not hurt. I think he's hurt. I think he's not injured.
Well, he's kind of been fighting something all year. It seems like he's gotten banged up hard, unfortunately. So, anyways, do you want to give a prediction for Game 6?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Jake is like, nope.
My prediction for the series was already wrong, so I'm already happy about that. I don't need to give another wrong prediction.
All right, fine. I'll be the only one that does it. I'll say 2-1 Stars, and it's in. I'll say single overtime in the last.
Double overtime. Mikko Rantanen scores heartbreaker.
That would be amazing.
I'll bite. It's 3-2 Stars. Double overtime. Mason Marchment scores.
Oh, that would the meltdown. Oh, that would be amazing. I would love that so much. Absolutely love that. Okay. Let's get into some of these other series, guys. I don't know how much y'all have seen of the other series, but I'm sure you have heard some of the storylines. Okay. So, which one would y'all like to jump into first? I'll let y'all
Let's
pick.
start with the West because everyone else starts in the East, and I hate that.
Very good. Okay.
Well, the East is easy. That's why they start.
That is true. And 2 of the series are already done. So, let's start with the Winnipeg St. Louis series. Okay. So, the storyline for this was basically the home teams have won all the games, right?
That's not the storyline.
Well, but
what's the storyline, Ryan?
Okay, Connor Hellebuyck is amazing at home and he sucks on the road.
He's doing it again. Connor Hellebuck's doing it again. That's the storyline. He got yanked from 2 games in a row, and he's going to win the Vezina by a mile this year. That's wild. I mean, Winnipeg, goodness. The Blues aren't even really doing anything. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think they're playing great. The 2 games they won, I think Hellebuyck was bad. That's what happened, in my opinion.
I mean, advanced stats agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm right. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. I can't really say because I haven't seen a lot of the series, but from what I saw, I only got to see a little bit of Game 3 and a little bit of Game 4. And that kind of skews the viewpoint a little bit based off of the rest of the games. And the Blues they looked like a team that was completely intent on, making fun of their opponent. And I mean, what were the score lines? Was it 5-1 and then it's like 7-2 or something like that? It was something insane like that. And I was just shocked that it's the President's Trophy winners, but even more importantly than that, it's the best goalie in the world according to the hockey world the last 2 years.
According to everybody.
Yes, and it's even to the point where he was being talked about for the Hart Trophy. That's how good he had played this season.
Yeah, so very much so.
I was completely 100% shocked when I saw Game 3 and Game 4, and just his save percentage was like 750 at Enterprise Center in St. Louis. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, his goals saved above expected, which is the one that we love to point out. It's the worst in the playoffs. It's a -7, which even like advanced stats, you can take a grain of salt with a lot of that. -7 is very bad through 4 games.
Yeah, that's too drastic to ignore.
And then on the opposite side, you've got Mackenzie Blackwood, who's basically the best goalie according to advanced analytics, other than Game 5. So, where do you think this series ends up, guys? Because right now, at the time we're recording this, it's 3-2 Winnipeg in the second period towards the end in Game 5. Excuse me. So, does this go the full distance and go 7, or does Winnipeg or St. Louis win it in 6?
I expected it to go 7. I mean,
I didn't.
There's so much that the Jets have not proved, specifically in the playoffs. I mean, especially after last season's round against the Avalanche
debacle.
That proved that they had a lot of work to do, and I don't know if they fixed it or not.
Their first round was against the Oilers, wasn't it?
No.
Oh, well, I'm crazy.
Is the Avalanche? That's how quick this series was over. They played the Avalanche, and it was done.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody gave them the benefit of the doubt in that series either. And then more people picked them this year just because they won the President's Trophy. But obviously, that's not doing them any favors right now. So,
well, and right now in the game, it's almost the end of the second period. The Blues have 2 goals on 7 shots. That doesn't sound like a Hart Trophy winning goalie.
It doesn't. It sounds like a Stuart Skinner. No offense to Edmonton, but
similar stat line.
So, speaking of Stuart Skinner, let's talk about that series here for a second. So the Oilers and the Kings, for a long time, for a while, I don't say a long time. For the first 2 games, it looked like LA finally was over their demons with this Edmonton Oilers
team.
Slay
the beast.
And it looked like they were going to, I don't want to say make it easy, but it looked like they were finally going to win the playoff series. And now they've lost 3 in a row, and the series is 3-2 heading to Edmonton for Game 6. And if they lose this series, it's 4 years in a row that the LA Kings have lost to the Edmonton Oilers in the first round, not even in different rounds, in the first round. And it didn't matter whether they have home ice or if they don't have home ice. They've been able to lose 4 times in a row if Edmonton wins Game 6. Yeah. Is that shocking to you that LA still hasn't been able to figure it out?
I mean, this series specifically is shocking because, personal opinion, the Kings should have already won this series.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, they should have swept them. They had a lead in the first 4 games through 2 periods and found a way to lose 2 of those games, almost lost another one. So,
well, you know what that sounds like? That sounds exactly like the Avalanche.
It's similar, but in a much worse way. The Kings are scoring a lot more than the Avalanche are.
Yeah, the Kings had multi-goal leads that they blew.
And they've blown them. Yeah,
big time. It's because they've always just sat back and tried to protect leads, and they've been successful at it. I mean, they didn't blow very many leads during the regular season, but this is the Edmonton Oilers. They have Connor McDavid. He almost won Game 1 by himself.
He tried.
So you can't do that against this team. You can't give them an inch because they're going to take 10 miles. I mean, it's just a wild coaching decision and repeated mistakes. They just do the same thing. They're like, all right, we got to leave in the third period. Time to lock it down, boys. You can't lock it down against Connor McDavid. You have to keep pushing.
Okay, so, and I also want to make y'all aware of, and James, help me out if I say this wrong. I can't remember if it was Game 3 or in Game 4. But in Game 3 or Game 4, one of the two, they had a goal that was called a good goal. And it, they reviewed it the first time and they were like, okay, nope, it's a good goal. It's fine. And then the LA Kings bench decided to use their coach's challenge. And because they used that coach's challenge, it allowed Edmonton to go on the power play, one of the best power plays in the game. Thank you, Natalie. Game 3. And they scored on that power play and they lost the game when they had a 1-goal lead late in the third period. And that right now, at least it looks like, is the series defining factor, is that terrible coaching decision. And it was really obvious too. Like, it was blatantly obvious that it was not goaltender interference or offside or whatever they were looking at. That I remember. I remember that very vividly, and that I remember how stupid I thought they were for challenging it. And I mean, that blows my mind that the coaches could make such a dumb decision like that in Game 3.
I honestly understood the challenge a little bit more.
It wasn't even close, Chris. There was no reason.
I agree. It was not super close, but I've seen crazier goalie interference calls happen. Right? I mean, no one understands the call. So weirder things can happen. And with how I was saying, how the Oilers were going downhill in the third period of every single game of this series, the Kings were not going to win when the game was tied. I mean, they'd made that challenge and it removed all doubt, that's for sure. But I don't think there was any chance the Kings were going to win that game if the Oilers tied it up. Honestly, that's where I understand it.
But like you're not going to go to at least go to overtime. Just accept it and go to overtime and
I mean, look what happened.
You put two of the top players in the world on the power play.
Look what happened in Game 4. They went to overtime and they got rocked.
I don't know. I don't agree with the decision by Hiller. I think is his name. Nate is telling me Hiller will be fired if the Kings lose. Or no? Yes, yeah.
I still don't think it was goal interference. It was a long shot challenge for sure. But I'm just saying I understand it. Because if you look at the Game 4 overtime, the Oilers dominated it. And that's how they got the power play.
Well, do you think the Kings pull it off?
No.
Or do you think Edmonton ends it?
They completely lost hold of the series, and they just lost one on home ice. And for a lot of people, that was going to be the defining moment. Whichever team lost on home ice first is going to lose. And honestly, I think it happened back in Game 3, like you said, Ryan. That failed challenge, failed to hold the lead there, really, really seems to have imploded the Kings.
The harmonica ladies did not work.
I love that, by the way. That's awesome that they've kind of become cult heroes in LA.
It was very hockey. I'll say that.
It was very hockey. All right, let's move on to the last West series that we haven't discussed, and that's Vegas and Minnesota. And as much as I hate Minnesota, I think I hate Vegas more right now.
No, that's a bad take as well.
That might be a bad
take. More than we hate Minnesota, but we still hate Minnesota more than we hate Vegas.
Okay. I like that way of putting it, Chris.
Okay, fine. I can get behind that too. But I've been paying attention to this series more than any of them, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's two teams I hate.
I mean, it's one of the most interesting series, honestly, especially after a lot of the ones in the East kind of just ended.
Right.
It's been really interesting. It's been close, tight games, hard checking. And that's just not really something you're seeing from any other series at all.
Yeah, to me, the Minnesota Wild are the biggest surprise of the playoffs. I mean, I understand they got a lot of players back, especially Kaprizov, but even with those guys, that team is not very deep at all, and they're very young, and they took it to the Golden Knights in the first 3 games of that series. It was really incredible to see for them, and you look at I think they showed a graphic for their first power play unit. No one was older than 25. And they have the Suter contract and the Parise contract coming off of their salary cap finally this offseason. And boy, howdy, the Wild are now terrifying.
Honestly, I believed this for a second that Minnesota was going to take the 3-2 series lead. There was a point in Game 5, or maybe it was in Game 4 that I was watching, and I was just like, this team they're gonna beat the Vegas Golden Knights, and now that's obviously not the case right now.
Game 5, they almost got the
they scored late in the third period, and one of their players was offside because he didn't drag a skate.
It got double reviewed. It got reviewed for a kick, and then the Knights challenged the offsides. So.
Okay, that's right. Okay, I couldn't remember if that was 4 or 5. So Game 5, and Vegas just does Vegas things. They've got experience a lot, and they're ridiculously deep with their team, and they've.
And while I did praise the Wild for being way better than I thought, I think the Knights wildly underestimated their opponent coming into this series. I do not think they were prepared to have much of a fight at all. And we lost Chris again. A couple of overtime victories, always going to be slightly lucky, but the response they've had has been very good, and it's a veteran response, and they're going to have to keep doing it for Game 6 because Carill's going to try and drag him across.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think Kaprizov is really going to it's going to be where this team rides or dies on. I mean, Gustafsson has been fantastic. That's a constant.
Yeah, another shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it was kind of cool to see Fleury get into the third period in Game 5. That was really cool. Yeah.
No, wait. Did he get the win, or did Gustafsson come back in that overtime? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I think I turned it off at that point because I was ready to go to bed. Okay, well, let's talk about the East a little bit, because 3 of the 4 series are already over, guys. And the one that's not over is the most interesting of them all.
The only one that was 3-0 in the entire playoffs is the one that's not over yet.
So do we want to start with that one, or do we want to end with that one?
End with that one, because the other ones will be quick.
I agree. Okay, so James just disappeared.
Well, maybe his power went out again.
Yep, maybe his power went out again. Hopefully he'll be back. Anyways, there he goes. No, he didn't lose power. What happened?
Moving through tabs too quickly.
First world internet problems. Okay, anyways, I do want to start with the Carolina series, because I think this one was not talked about almost at all. I barely saw this on social media at all. I personally love it because Stankoven gets to go into the next round. He scored 3 goals in the first round. That's fantastic. I am rooting for the Canes all the way through the eastern side of the bracket. And I will be rooting for them if any other team gets to the Stanley Cup final other than the Dallas Stars. But I just thought it's great to see Stank get into the second round.
Yep, and he's been integral for that team. I mean, the Devils are depleted. They're the worst team in the playoffs this year because
not really
of their
fault.
injuries. It was really sad, but yeah, the Canes did what they should. The fact that the Devils won a game is honestly a win for them. Like, I think you look at this series as a success as a Devils fan.
Yeah, and I am going to fact check you on that Stankoven one. He only got 2 goals. His third one had to get tapped in by someone else, but it's basically 3.
Oh, okay. I thought he actually scored that one. Never mind.
Nope. But I mean, that this one was, in I think everyone's eyes, was going to be the most obvious. It felt like it had been decided before it even started, especially like you said, Chris, with all the injuries. It's so hard to make up for that. Goaltending can try. And I really think that's how they stole the one game.
Legit.
And even in the final overtime, he tried. He was not giving up, but there's no one left on his team, and sometimes that's how it happens. You run out of players. You get unlucky.
Felt like Jake Ottinger against Calgary Flames there in those final 2 games.
It really did, man.
And I honestly felt bad for Markstrom. I really did, because after he let in the goal in overtime. And he slashed his stick against the goal. You could tell that he was emotionally invested in this series. I mean, everyone is, but him more so, just based off of his play. He was so stinking frustrated with how well he played, and he doesn't get rewarded for it. I hate that more than anything. That's like the worst feeling in the world. And honestly, it gives me way more mad respect for Jacob Markstrom because of just this series alone. So, anyways, moving on to the Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens. This was a easy expectation for a lot of people. I had to pick an upset, so I was completely wrong in this series. I picked Montreal just because I thought maybe Washington would not be able to get over their demons, and maybe their best in the East, standing was not as good as we expected them to be, but they take care of business and they go 4-1 against the Montreal Canadiens. What did y'all see out of that series?
It's not particularly close. I mean, the Caps pulled back on one game, and the Canadiens played their best game, and that's how they got the one. After that, the other 4 were just trounces.
I thought that the Canadiens might have stolen at least one more game in this one, just because they're so young. And there's no pressure on them at all, man. I mean, every Canadiens fan, I mean, there's no pressure, even though that market's so huge and they're crazy about hockey. This is probably one of the youngest teams to ever get in the playoffs.
They're just happy to be there.
Yeah,
really.
It's honestly a success for the Canadiens to be in the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think they're going to be more dangerous next year, especially. I mean, I would be very surprised to not see them in the top 3 in their division next year. That's my personal opinion, because they're going to get a lot of experience and a lot of confidence from just making the playoffs, and then even playing against a good team like the Washington Capitals. So this is definitely not the end of the swan song of the Montreal Canadiens. And then this next one was a huge surprise for me in particular, and I'm sure a lot of other people were surprised by that. But the Florida Panthers have finished off the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games. Part of me says you probably should have seen that coming, but also I wasn't seeing this coming this way, because Tampa Bay down the stretch looked really good, and I thought with all the experience they still have with Vasilevsky, with Victor Hedman, and obviously they've still got Braden Point and Kucherov, but and then there was so many question marks with the Florida Panthers, because Tkachuk was out from the Four Nations tournament until the beginning of the playoffs, basically, and then all the other injuries they've had to deal with Alexander Barkov, and also with Aaron Ekblad having to deal with some suspension stuff and all that. They overcome all of that, and they don't just win this series. You could argue they dominated it.
Yeah,
they did pretty much dominate it, and it's because the big reason to me is that Matthew Tkachuk was way better than anybody thought he would be. I mean, people thought he wasn't even going to play, and he comes out and he's a point per game. I mean, and he's doing Matthew Tkachuk things between whistles and all that kind of stuff. So I honestly didn't get too much why there was so much hype around the Lightning. I know Vasilevsky was playing good and Kucherov was doing Kucherov things, which he always does quietly in the NHL. But, I mean, the Panthers are built to win Stanley Cups, and they got people back at the right times, and they showed you why they're built to win Stanley Cups. They bullied the Lightning.
Yeah, and they bullied them on the aggressive side too, and hits and everything with that. I mean, they also immensely hurt their opponents. They didn't just beat them; they literally beat them into the ground.
Yep. And like, in terms of nastiness, as much as Colorado and Dallas don't like each other, we didn't really see a lot of nastiness in this series until the end of Game 5, and then obviously the whole Liam Bichel thing. There was a lot of nastiness in this particular series, a lot. In terms of some disgusting hits that we saw, like it was Matthew Tkachuk on, was it Hagel? Brandon Hagel, and I think Hagel got hurt, and then Barkov got hit pretty hard from Hagel, and there was some questions asked about Department of Player Safety there. So
there's 3 straight games where there was a 5-minute major, and then there was a suspension in this series. So yeah, this was a nasty one.
Yes. And again, we hadn't seen anything in the Dallas Colorado series until Game 5. So, and that leads us to the final series, which is so much fun to talk about because we have to talk about it. And it's a verb now. Are the Leafs gonna leaf? The only team in the playoffs that was up 3-0 in their series. The only team. And they're the only ones not done in the East. Every other series is wrapped up in the East. And it is now 3-2 with Game 6 going back to Ottawa. And not only is it going back to Ottawa, but it's the way the Leafs played in Game 5, guys. In Game 5, they lost 4-0. Now, the score is a little bit, suspect, kind of like it was for the Stars. Game 1, 5-1. That was not indicative of how most of the game was. It was pretty close most of the way. But just the fact that they go into this and, they're 1-14 in an elimination games. The Leafs are since 2018. Like that is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. In games when they have had the chance to eliminate a team, or it was a Game 7, they are 1-14. It just blows my ever living mind. And here's my prediction. If they lose game 6, they lose the series.
Well, that's an
like
easy
that.
one.
I mean, but the question is are the Leafs going to leave? Are they going to lose game 6?
Yeah, I don't think they are. I mean, the game 5 was their worst of the series, and I just don't see them doing that again unless Ullmark, I mean, goes crazy again, which is possible. I mean, that's a goalie that we've seen can get hot and play fantastic. So that's for sure a possibility, but I don't see the Leafs playing that poorly again in game 6. That being said, they need to score the first goal. I mean, you can't go down in that game with all that history that you said, Ryan, behind them. You have to get ahead. You have to lead the whole way through, pretty much, in my opinion. So hopefully they do that. If not, yeah, people are going to be terrified as soon as they start going down in that game.
Yeah, it's really concerning, especially when you look at game 5. It's not just that they had their worst game. They didn't score a goal. And that they also had two of their wins were 3-2 wins in overtime from players who don't normally score. So, I mean, it's really going to come down to their depth more than anything, because I don't know if they're going to get much help at all from their top guns in an elimination game. It hasn't happened before. I don't see it happening now.
I think they're going to lose game 6, and I think they're going to lose the series. I thought for sure after losing game 4 that they were going to win game 5 because it's at home in Toronto. Yep. And I was completely discounting everything that's happened with that team in terms of just being able to win playoff series. And I shouldn't have. I really thought for sure they were going to win game 5. And normally I'm the one that picks Toronto to win series. I don't think they got it. I think they lose game 6, and I think they lose the series.
One final thing. Since we've got an Avs fan in the chat, I want to talk about what all the Avalanche are talking about, which the only thing they've talked about since game 5 is officiating and embellishment, which I think is just hilarious, considering the fact that the Avalanche, who by all means should have one of the best power plays in the league, especially in the playoffs, with such a clutch guy like McKinnon and Makar on that first unit, they should be feasting on these power play goals that they've had. I think they're still top 3 in the playoffs for power play opportunities. They've had 3 goals all series long. So what is with this attachments to the power play narrative? Like, they're not scoring anyway. Are you sure that's the thing you want to focus on?
Well, and I've especially seen, since we're talking about the Stars and stuff anyway, there's somebody in the Denver Post that is just going full throttle at Marchman and Ben, which I love. I'm perfectly okay with it. And you know, the fact that seems to be a storyline. Okay, fine. That is it true? Yes, absolutely. But there are things that you can't control, and the refs are something that you cannot control. And that's something that honestly that I think I've learned over the course of doing this podcast over the last 5 years. As we can still complain about how terrible the officiating can be, but at the end of the day, that cannot be the deciding factor for why you lose.
And that's all I'm seeing from the Avs, which is the crazy thing. Like, for sure, that can be a talking point. And I think it's been a talking point for us that the officiating has been bad. But that can't be the only reason you're losing.
And if they want to be like, well, it's not just that the officiating's bad, it's when they're calling calls. The Avalanche had 2 huge calls at the end of game 2 and 3 to win the game. They score on it at all. They win the game, and they couldn't do it.
The Denver Post guy has to be called out. I wouldn't have found him. It's Sean Keeler. So yeah, go find those articles. He was doing them all last year too. He's 100% a rage baiter. That's what it is. He's trying to get the other fans to comment on his stuff. So oblige him and go let him know what you think of his work, because he writes some of the craziest things. And he did it last year too. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, he's a rage baiter.
And you know what, that makes things more interesting.
It
Drama
does.
field.
I just think it's weird that someone from the Denver Post is rage baiting instead of like Blackout Denver or whatever, you know? Like I'd expect that from a fan blog, but from the Denver Post?
Well, he gets paid money to do it, and he did it last year, and they were fine with it. So he was just like, okay, I'll do it again this year. So
yeah, either way, stop complaining about penalties. You're not scoring on power plays anyway.
I mean, literally the last 2 games they've lost. Game 3, it was like what? 0 for 6 or something like that, and then game 5 0 for 3. Yeah. So like, stop. We have been more opportunistic on the power play than the Avs have been, and that's a deciding factor in the series right now. Is the special teams have been better for the Stars throughout the entire series.
Yeah,
and then in goaltending, I would have given the Avalanche kind of the nod for the first 2-3 games, especially. But after game 5, that ain't the case.
Yeah,
I think it's more
should be more upset
now
about how badly they're losing to a team without their number 1 defenseman and their top goal scorer. That's what they should be talking about.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. I think that's it.
I think that's it. Game 6 is tomorrow. Close it out, boys.
And can we please get a game at like a regular time?
Nope, never. Not until the Western Conference Final.
Is there a team we can play in the Western Conference Final if we get there where we would have regular times?
We did have regular times last year.
I guess we could play Minnesota.
When we played the Oilers, it was regular times. I think they were all 7:30.
Not in Edmonton, I don't think.
I thought they were 7:30 in Edmonton.
No, I think Edmonton started at 8:30 instead.
I'll have to fact check you because I feel confident.
Man,
fact checking it. I'd like to see that.
Like as much fun as I had at Game 5, I didn't get home until after 2:00 in the morning. That was rough, man. Like, please, can I get home at a regular time? But anyways, let's wrap it up here. We'll be back with you guys again tomorrow. We are going to do a watch along for our Who Cares Club members as well for Game 6. So be looking out for that. We're going to be on the Discord. At the very least, I think me and Chris are going to be able to do it. James is going to, unfortunately, won't be able to.
You got to make money or something.
Yeah.
We make bank on this podcast, James. I don't know what your problem is.
But sorry, I'm trying not to laugh. But anyways, we'll catch you guys there if you want to come and hang out with us. If you're a Who Cares Club member, we'd love to see you guys there. Description to join the Who Cares Club member is down below. It's in the description, and click that link and follow it, and you can join there. Alongside Chris, and alongside James, we'll catch you guys on the flip side, and we will be back with you guys for Game 6, and really hope the Stars are able to pull it out in 6 games. See you guys later.